hope within us or we don't. It is a dimension of the soul, and it's not necessarily dependent on some particular observation of the world or estimate of the situation. Hope, in this deep and powerful sense, is not the same as joy that things are going well, or willingness to invest in enterprises that are obviously heading for success, but rather the ability to work for something because it is good, not just because it has a chance to succeed. The more propitious the situation in which we demonstrate hope, the deeper the hope is. Hope is definitely not the same thing as optimism. It is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. So recovery, I think, represents this kind of deep hope. And one of the things we do when we work with clients is to re-engage hope, to give people hope, or to help them to give themselves hope. Stages of the grief process. It wasn't loss is a part of life. It's a normal part of life. The idea is to process loss and move on, to see that it has stages, to not get stuck in any loss of any particular kind so that we stay frozen in unfelt pain. I'm working with Bowlby's, Jonathan Bowlby's Stages of Loss and Separation. They are essentially, I'm going to put them in a locogram. Locogram is a very basic sociometric exercise in psychodrama, loco meaning location. We're going to put numbness, first stage of grieving and loss, in one corner, yearning and searching in that corner, disorganization, anger, despair in this corner, and reorganization here. So those are Bowlby's 4 stages of loss: numbness, yearning and searching, disorganization, anger, despair, reorganization. And whatever losses have gotten warmed up for you throughout this process so far, I'm wondering if you want to just take a little stroll and see where you think you are in your process with this particular loss. Are you still numb? Are you yearning and searching? Are you floating around in disorganization and anger and despair? Or are you in acceptance and reorganization?
Reorganization and acceptance.
Well, doesn't matter. Yeah, sort of. Not on this one, but we could if you want one. Okay, so share from the other. We'll put other right there. So a brief sentence about why you're standing where you're standing. In sociometry, the value is that it gets us up out of our chairs. It gets you started in a process because you have to stand somewhere. So it's not that you have to continue standing where you're standing, but it gets you up and out of your chair and standing somewhere, and it begins it. So a brief sentence about why you're standing where you're standing.
I am between numbness and disorganization, despair, and anger. The numbness is coming to grips with the pain I created in my family, my wife, my 3 children, and how I can't understand how that happened. You know, it must come from being really dissociated from something. And then I'm also in through working a lot on this and coming to grips with it. This part of me that's totally disorganized in terms of where it's feeling a little hopeless because it seems so overwhelming. But it's also put me in touch with a lot of anger, from my past. But there's also a lot of despair, feeling the loss of the love of my wife, the anger of my children, and the distancing of a lot of my close friends. And then when I was
let's take a look at some of the feelings that go a little farther down, and you'll get a chance to continue to share whatever is coming up for you. With a spectrogram, the grief spectrogram. The spectrogram is, think of it as a graph on the floor. This side represents 0, this end of the room 100, and this is about the 50% mark. And imagine that there's a line here. So 0%, 100%, and a bisecting right here of 50%. And I'm going to ask you some questions and just locate yourself along that line in whatever place best answers those questions. They're all related to the kinds of feelings that come up as part of the grief process. How much unresolved emotion do you feel surrounding this loss? None? A lot? 50%. Okay, a couple people, just a sentence about why you're standing where you're standing.
Well, I'm 14 years old, and I feel a considerable amount of unresolved loss and grief at this point. Still don't understand why she left.
I think because of the traumatic way that my marriage did break up, I've never come to terms with it.
So you're at about 75, are you standing?
There are times I'm at 100%, and other times I think I'm play acting when I say that I'm not.
Thank you.
I love her so much.
I love you. Talk directly to Mom.
Mom, I love you so, so much. And when you died, my whole life was taken from me. I felt totally stripped from everything. And there was so much guilt and shame because when I found you there, I didn't believe you were dead. When I called the ambulance, I thought you were in a coma. And then when they told me you were dead, I just couldn't believe it. You were only 45. You were my whole life. And like I couldn't show up because I was using. I was upstairs in the bathroom getting straight when you lay dead on the couch. And then I had to be late for the funeral, right? I had to be late for the funeral. And I couldn't look at you. My mom had a closed casket because she was so overweight.
Right to Mom. Talk to Mom. You were so overweight.
Mom, you were so overweight, and I understand why you wanted a closed casket. You didn't want anyone looking at your body.
But your addiction to food kept me from being able to say goodbye to you.
No, I don't think you're addiction.
Correct that. Don't wear it if it doesn't feel
It was a closed casket that was open for me and my brother. And they opened the casket, and I couldn't look at you because the guilt and shame was so deep. I couldn't look at you. I told them to shut it. And I couldn't touch you. I couldn't kiss you on the forehead. I couldn't do any of that. I so regret it. If you were here today, that's what I would do. I would embrace you. I would hold you. I would tell you how sorry I am for the torture I put you through.
Grief is core to trauma resolution. It opens up the ability to heal and restores spontaneity. Grief opens up the possibility of forgiveness, both of the self and someone else. Do you want to have someone play your mom so you can do those things?
Sure, I guess it would have to be Donna because she looks like my mom.